The radical left's agendas are challenging American values, but conservatives like you haven't forgotten what this country was built on. My friends, the Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard and to represent your values in the D.C. swamp. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Man, oh man, Shevitz, there's a lot going on. And you know, every day with this president, there's a lot going on, and most of it's great. Great. The things he's doing, just fantastic. Of course, the establishment hates it, but we have a lot of contempt for them. But before I go there, happy Monday to you. Thank you for watching Life, Liberty, and Levin. Thank you for the folks that came out in Reston at Barnes & Noble. We had a fantastic time, and Barnes & Noble did a great job. Great job, brand new store, and we enjoyed it immensely. And thanks to those of you who are still purchasing the book in the retail stores and online on Amazon.com. Thank you very, very much. I think I had 8 interviews today and more to come on various radio spots. Also, I was on Stephen A. Smith's podcast, and as soon as we have it, I will send you the link. He's a dear friend, and it was an excellent discussion. He's a very smart guy. Excellent discussion. Now, folks, maybe I was the only one to say this. I said it here behind this microphone. I said it on my Fox show. I said it on Blaze. That this Epstein matter, where are we going with this? What is the end of this? No, Trump didn't do anything untoward. If they had some big names, they would have revealed them over there at the Department of Justice. And of course, if the Democrats and any big Republicans, including the president, they would have revealed it. So where exactly are we going with this? Now, federal judges ruled that he's not releasing the grand jury information. I'm not surprised by that because it's almost considered sacrosanct. It is a serious crime if somebody leaks information out of a grand jury. Why? Because truly the grand jury is the opposite of due process. You don't have a right to counsel. It's the prosecutor's baby, and they can push hard on a number of fronts, and so people can have their reputations destroyed. It's not a trial. You know, there's no judge. The prosecutor owns it. The whole purpose of a grand jury historically was supposed to be to protect the citizen. I don't think it protects anybody. In fact, I'm not a big fan. But all that said, all that said, I said the Epstein case, well, there's not a lot to this case. Obviously, to the people who were harmed, there's a lot to the case. And but that's not what we're talking about, the political dimensions of the case. We had all these people who claim to be influencers, on, talking about how this was the big matter, and that if it wasn't resolved, that Donald Trump his ratings would plummet. We had all these people saying that the way Donald Trump is handling this, he's going to upset MAGA. In fact, the MAGA base is furious with him. All these people saying the Epstein matter would cause us to lose the midterm elections. You had Carlson talking about this, Bannon talking about this, Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about this, Joe Rogan talking about this, all the rest of them. All the rest of them. And they were dead wrong. All of them. All of them. Others, too. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. I want you to listen to this from CNN. Unfortunately, we have to go to CNN to hear it. But nonetheless, this guy, their data guy, Enten, is actually quite good. I want you to listen carefully to this. And this is example number 4 billion of how these phony influencers aren't influencers at all, how they push their own agendas, how they try to hype up their audiences and fearmonger and all the rest. I just want you to take a listen to this from today. Cut 21, go.
And there are new numbers this morning showing something of a shift in how Americans are feeling about this. Harry Enten, here to help. What are you seeing in these numbers?
Yeah, I would say that this is, from at least a political point of view, quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
This
has been for 3 weeks.
Exactly. Now. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between tariffs and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger.
So out of sight, out of mind, maybe, is applying here a little bit. But has it impacted, have you seen numbers that has impacted Trump's popularity, favorability, anything?
No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point. He was at 37%. So he's 7 points higher, very much in a different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. And more than that, among Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base. And when it comes to that center of the electorate, he's basically holding on there. And his overall approval rating, 44%, is pretty gosh darn good for him, considering where he was at this point in term number 1.
What do you think is behind it? Why there hasn't been more movement?
Yeah, why hasn't there been more movement? I think this is pretty simple. Take a look here. Nation's top issue is the Epstein case. This is the number of respondents. This isn't the percentage of respondents. This is the number of respondents. In our last CNN poll, look at this. 0 respondents said that the Epstein case was the top issue. How about among independents? 0 independents said that. And among Republicans, and therefore overall, just a single one. So yes, there used to be a lot of interest in this story, but the bottom line is that even amongst those who had high interest in this story, it wasn't something that they thought was all that important. And as I said at the beginning, the interest in this story has fallen off the table.
Which also, when you look at this and you compare it to just the attention that Capitol Hill was giving it, Donald Trump supporters were giving it, congressional committees were giving it, it is incongruous.
I would just say this. Donald Trump has some of the best political instincts of any politician I've seen. And on this particular issue, you see it full well and clear, because he has been saying, you know what, this is not an issue. And it turns out that a lot of the American public actually seem to agree with him.
And we're back live. And if you've been listening to this program, most of you have, most of your longtime listeners, but even if you're a new listener over the last couple of months, I took that position right out of the box. Not because I'm Nostradamus, but because you and I have a lot in common. I'm not trying to drive the news. I'm not trying to drive issues. We'll talk about them at length. If there's a history related to them, we'll get into history. If there's a philosophy related to them, we'll get into philosophy. But I tell you, every time, these phony influencers, many of whom are out of the closet, America haters, Jew haters, now Christian haters, don't follow them. Don't follow them. I don't care how big they say their podcasts are. I don't care if they used to be one of us. These are bad people, stupid people who are pushing agendas that are not your agenda. They're not your agenda. And they stab President Trump in the back. And they're still doing it. They're still doing it. And their hope, beyond hope, is that the Epstein matter will turn into something. It's as if it was when our bombers, our stealth bombers, hit Iran, hit those nuclear sites and obliterated them. You could almost feel like these individuals, many of whom I named, wanted us to fail because they wanted to be demonstrated to be right. It's as if they wanted us to fail. It's as if they want Hamas to win. It's as if they and the radical left media and the Islamists and the Muslims are now on the same page. These are bad people. These are stupid people. They're not your kind of people. They're simply not. And this is why I wanted to play this. The Epstein matter doesn't matter to anybody. If something is breaking that's going to come out of it, I guess we'll hear about it at some point. But what is the end game here? I said several weeks ago, the Obama-Hillary effort to destroy this republic and undermine the last election, that is in 2016, I should say, that's the big issue. And the Epstein matter, at least temporarily, was taking attention away from that. Now, that issue is not going to go away, nor should it, because it involved the republic. So none of this has had any impact on Donald Trump, any negative impact. So all those podcasters, and some of them who went to the White House, Mr. President, you got to get in front of this. It's going to kill you with the base. They do the same thing when it comes to Israel. You know, Mr. President, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you with MAGA. 90% of Republicans support Donald Trump. 90%. 94% supported us hitting those nuclear bases. Doesn't get any bigger than that. The overwhelming majority of conservatives and Republicans support the state of Israel and despise Hamas. Despite all the static, despite all the reporting, and despite their hard anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, which goes along with their America hatred, which now goes along with their Christian hatred. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, we're less than a year from the 250th birthday of our great nation. But sadly, far too many have forgotten what this country stands for. Why? Because they forgot or were never even taught how this country was founded, why it was founded, and who founded it. If we lose our heritage, we lose America. That's why the Heritage Foundation needs your help. They've created a resource not just to ensure that patriots like you don't forget about the American founding, but to equip Americans with the facts they've never learned in school. This resource, Why the American Founding Matters, explores the question of why it's so important to study the American founding and why the founding still matters today. Folks, don't wait. Get your free copy of this essay today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Now, included in this resource is a comprehensive timeline of the American founding from 1774 to 1800. You need to read it, folks, and so does everyone you know. So go to heritage.org/Levin now. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Make America Great Again is the unification of all aspects of the Republican Party and beyond. People who've never been Republican and never voted Republican. There's really one man that's been able to pull this off, and that's Donald Trump. In the 1980s, there was really one man who was able to pull it off, and it was Ronald Reagan. I don't know what's going to happen after Donald Trump. I'm not prepared to say I'm for this one, that one, or the other one. We shall see. But you know, folks, we have certain values and principles, you and I, and we have every right to demand that public officials conduct themselves, or people who go public, in a way that we can tolerate and accept, share with our children, and embrace. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not one of them. Her district in Georgia is the most Republican district in the state. They can do a lot better than her, and I mean a lot better than her. The things that she says about people, the things that she does, the stabbing of President Trump in the back, her obsessive hatred for the state of Israel and Jews generally. And then I'm reminded, these things are sent to me, even in her personal life, and I never talk about somebody's children, never, or family members. But her own conduct, and she's not alone. And it seems to me you and I have an obligation to the future of the country, to our cause, to call these people out and say, we want nothing to do with you. Nothing. Whether you're of the left or the right. From the Daily Mail a few years back, exclusive, embattled QAnon Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene openly cheated on her husband of 25 years with a polyamorous tantric sex guru and then moved on to another affair with the manager of her gym. And I'm not going to get into the lurid details here. It's pretty outrageous. In fact, to me, it's disgusting. But this is only part of it. And then, of course, Matt Gaetz comes to her defense. Matt Gaetz has his own TV show on some network. Have you read the ethics report on that guy? The prostitutes and all the rest? Now, he's out of Congress, so he can do whatever he wants. Great, he's gone. This woman is in such a Republican district that unless the people in the district are really aware of her, my guess is she'll continue to get elected. And the funny thing is, when you criticize her and her outrageous, disgusting bigotry and statements, she hides behind her constituents. Oh, you're attacking my constituents. Or her faith. Oh, you're attacking Christians. Nobody's attacking her constituents or Christians. They're focused on her and what a disgrace she is. They're focused on Matt Gaetz. What a disgusting disgrace he is. And then we move on to Steve Bannon. Bannon is a convicted felon. He's confessed. He pled guilty. Ripping off a charity. That's what he did. And that's just the beginning of it. And we're supposed to say, oh, he's an influencer? And influencing who? Now, they interview each other, but these aren't MAGA. These aren't constitutional conservatives. And then, of course, there's Carlson. Day in and day out, Holocaust deniers, Israel haters, Jew haters, day in and day out. I don't know what's happened to this guy. I don't know if he had a hand injury or what the hell's going on. But we have an obligation. We, the people. We can't rely on the Republican Party to do anything about this. These guys are scared. They're cowards. They don't call them out. I have to call them out. The Republican Party has an obligation, it seems to me, to denounce these people, to distance themselves from these people, just as the Democrat Party has a responsibility to do the same on its side. This country is for we the people. We're the sovereign. Not sleazeball politicians who put out slogans, who want you to believe that they are something that they're not and they've never been. Or these frauds. Takes nothing to podcast, to have a microphone. American-hating, Jew-hating, Christian-hating now, Christian-hating individuals, they don't represent us. They're not part of MAGA. They're not part of constitutional conservatism. They're in their own world, ladies and gentlemen. That's their problem. That's their lane. And just because they don't wear robes and so forth doesn't mean they aren't what they are. I'll be right back. How many founding fathers can you name? I bet most Americans can't name more than 2 or 3. Folks, if we forget the founding our country's heritage, we risk losing our America as we know it. The Heritage Foundation needs your help, ensuring that the American founding and those who made it possible aren't forgotten. Their new resource, Why the American Founding Matters, explores why the American founding still matters in the 21st century and why it's so important that we study it. Without the unique principles that form the basis of our founding documents, the challenges of self-government, and the dedication vindication of our founding fathers. America as we know it could never have existed. So go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get your copy of this important new essay from the Heritage Foundation, which includes a comprehensive timeline of the American founding from 1774 to 1800. There's too much at stake to not take action today, so please get your free copy at heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
You know, there was a time, ladies and gentlemen, when things like this mattered. Again, no one should ever go after somebody's children or parents. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the member. This House Ethics Committee report, no wonder they wanted to keep it secret. Gates went nuts when they decided to make it public. And the media reports from the report, and I've linked to it myself, the committee determined there's substantial evidence that Representative Gates violated House rules and other standards of conduct prohibiting prostitution, statutory rape, illicit drug use, impermissible gifts, special favors or privileges, and obstruction of Congress. Now, of course, he's free to respond to all this. This has been out in the public for several years now. So he comes to the defense of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, she hasn't done anything like this, of course. But she's a sleazeball, nonetheless. It's really, as I say, we really have to, you and I have to clean up this mess. We do. This guy Gates is a TV show. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has lost substantial percentage of the vote in the district she's in from the person who used to hold the seat. I mean, she still gets like 60, 65, 63, 64%, but it is a heavily Republican district. But the person who she replaced because he retired, he used to get in the 70s. But so what? Then she goes around acting like she represents MAGA. That's an embarrassment. She has nothing to do with the 77 million individuals who voted for President Trump. Nothing. Nothing. Zero. Then you got another guy who knows his way around prison pretty well, this guy Bannon. The guy pled guilty. And that was only one of his offenses. Apparently there was some kind of charity set up to build a southern wall, and he and some other guy, well, he pled guilty to fraud. And he just has a podcast out there, you know. What's he call it? The Fraud Room? Something like that. I'm not trying to pick on these people. I'm trying to make a point. I know everything I say here, the lib media picks up and runs with and puts a stupid headline on, because that's how Dan Abrams conducts himself. Dan Abrams is a thoroughly stupid man who plays all sides of the aisle, pretends he's a news guy, then he opens a restaurant. His sister is a federal judge appointed by Obama. He pretends to be a serious lawyer, news guy, and yet he is the Jerry Springer of court TV and all the rest of that crap. He's a real number. Let me put it that way. Then you ought to see the people who write for them over at Mediocreite, most of whom, not all, are hardcore leftists. They have a conservative here or there. Isaac Shore's a guy who writes for the New York Post, but he really is into the Mediaite sort of gossipy crap. But none of that matters. We conservatives, we patriots, we can't follow false idols like this just because they have the biggest mouths, just because they interview each other. We can't fall for their anti-Americanism, their isolationism, their Jew hatred, their Israel hatred, and now trashing Christians and Churchill and giving platforms to the crazy bastards that are out there. Because that's what's happening. You can see they have no real influence. You can see they had no real influence on the Epstein thing. To a man and a woman and an in-between. This is going to destroy the Trump presidency. MAGA is not going to tolerate this, especially young MAGA. Over 30, younger than 30. It's going to ruin it. It's going to tear it apart. And nobody gives a crap. The guy killed himself. And I hate to say this, but good. Based on what he did. And maybe there's something out there we'll learn. It'll be interesting and so forth. But we have a country to save. We have a country to promote and advance. We can't allow these grifters to drive an agenda, and you're not. Apparently, you just don't give a crap about it anymore. But they still do. A couple of them over at the White House telling the staff over there, this is a big deal. Oh, yes. Mr. President, it's a big deal. You better get in front of this. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, what the president did today was, in my view, fantastic. He's a remarkable man, this president. Stop listening to the phony influencers. They are a grotesque group of know-nothings. He's a remarkable man. He sees what's going on in Washington, D.C., and of course the Washington, D.C. establishment keeps lying about it. And what are you talking about here? The murder rate's down. We only had 187 last year. Yeah, okay. Well, if that was your mother or father, your son or daughter, your wife or husband, it wouldn't be only 187. And then when you break it down and you also look at the comparison, not of D.C. to D.C., but D.C. to the other cities, it's shocking. This is our nation's capital. Plus, under our Constitution, it's a federal city. Maryland and Virginia gave up land, were required to create this city. Eventually, Virginia got its back because they didn't need it. And this is a federal city where the federal government sits. The thinking correctly back then was we can't have a local government or a state-like government oversee where the White House is or will be, where the Congress serves, where the Supreme Court serves. It has to be a federal enclave. So they called it the District of Columbia. In the 1970s, really pretty much under Nixon, they began to try home rule, and it's expanded ever since. And so you have this radical left city council, crazy asses, just nuts. And then you have this incompetent boob who's the mayor. Who's the mayor? It's a problem. And they're saying, well, look, the murder rate's gone down since last year and since 5 years ago or whatever they're saying. Not that matters. That's not the right comparison, in my view. And the White House put out some information I thought was very useful. As a matter of fact, anybody can read it. Washington, D.C. should be a symbol of pride and patriotism for the American people. Here are the facts. In 2024, it saw a homicide rate of 273 per, if I'm reading this right, my eyesight, no, 27.3 per 100,000 residents. That was the fourth highest homicide rate in the country, nearly 6 times higher than New York City, also higher than Atlanta, Chicago, and Compton, of all places, Chicago. If Washington, D.C. was a state, it would have the highest homicide rate of any state in the nation. Now, you won't hear this from the media. In 2012, the homicide rate in Washington, D.C. was just 13.9 per 100,000. Now it's 27.3. Its murder rate is roughly 3 times higher than that of Islamabad, Pakistan, 18 times higher than communist-run Havana, Cuba. The number of juveniles arrested in Washington has gone up each year since 2020, many of whom have had prior arrests for violent crimes. There were nearly 30,000 crimes reported in Washington last year, including almost 3,500 violent offenses, over 1,000 assaults with a dangerous weapon, over 2,000 robberies, over 5,000 motor vehicle thefts. I'd say that's a lot. So far this year, there have already been 1,600 violent crimes, nearly 16,000 total crimes. There have been nearly 100 homicides, including the fatal shootings of innocent civilians, like 3-year-old Honesty Chowdhury and 21-year-old Capitol Hill intern Eric Tarpinian Jayam. Very little has been talked about that guy. That poor young man, the intern. Vehicle theft in Washington, D.C. is more than 3 times the national average, ranking it almost the most dangerous city among the most dangerous cities in the world. Carjackings increased 547% between 2018 and 2013. In 2023. In 2024, last year, there were triple the number of carjackings compared to 2018. These statistics are not only troubling on their own, they also likely significantly understate the level of crime in Washington. The Metropolitan Police Department leadership are allegedly cooking the books to make crime statistics appear more favorable. Many residents don't feel safe reporting crime. More than half of all violent crime in the U.S. goes unreported in the first place. WUSA-TV, the local station, they said D.C. residents voiced frustration over rising violence, questioning police stats, and demanding real action to make neighborhoods feel safe again. Cooking the books, what do you mean, Mark? I'll tell you what I mean. This was local news, NBC, Channel 4. D.C. police commander, this is from this July, suspended accused of changing crime statistics. Oh, do tell. A D.C. police commander is under investigation for allegedly making changes in crime statistics in his district. Metropolitan Police Department confirmed he was placed on paid administrative leave in mid-May. That happened just a week after he filed an equal employment opportunity complaint against an assistant chief. And the police union accused the department of deliberately falsifying crime data, according to 3 law enforcement sources familiar with the complaint. And it goes on. Whatever they do, they better not hire people from the Census Bureau to help them, Mr. Producer. It's funny how all these so-called independent entities apparently have a real problem with arithmetic. All right. So there's real crime, dangerous, violent crime in Washington, D.C. And people try to stay out of the streets at night. This is the truth. And right around the Capitol building and in Lafayette Park, you have people being violently attacked. Around their convention center, which used to be a very nice area, people are told to stay away. But don't worry, the media tell us. Don't worry, the Democrats tell us. Don't worry, the people responsible for keeping the city safe, the mayor, tell us that it's overstated. Now, what has President Trump done in response to this? I'll explain when we return. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, we're less than a year from the 250th birthday of our great nation. But sadly, far too many have forgotten what this country stands for. Why? Because they forgot or were never even taught how this country was founded, why it was founded, and who founded it. If we lose our heritage, we lose America. That's why the Heritage Foundation needs your help. They've created a resource not just to ensure that patriots like you don't forget about the American founding, but to equip Americans with the facts they've never learned in school. This resource, Why the American Founding Matters, explores the question of why it's so important to study the American founding and why the founding still matters today. Folks, don't wait. Get your free copy of this essay today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Now, included in this resource is a comprehensive timeline of the American founding from 1774 to 1800. You need to read it, folks, and so does everyone you know. So go to heritage.org/Levin now. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Let's go with Cut 16, the President of the United States today. Go.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
So already, and I predicted this, I posted this on all the social sites, that the left would say this is dictatorial, and he's this, and he's that, and the other. There's nothing dictatorial about this. That section of the D.C. Home Rule Act was passed by Congress. The fact that the city is a federal city is in the Constitution. The oversight of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department is also authority granted to the president when he deems their emergency, and of course he has control over the National Guard that can be used to back up the police. There's absolutely nothing unconstitutional, lawless about any of this. The problem is what's going on in the nation's capital. The nation's capital is where our national government is centered, purposely. All three branches of government. And when people can't be safe in our nation's capital, then the federal government is at risk. And so the president, I'm sure he'd rather not do this, he's trying to resolve this now. And what he's doing is a good thing for the people of the District of Columbia, a city that's like 90-some-odd% Democrat, that has never voted for him and never will, that will never vote for a Republican, that I believe is a minority black even. So what he's doing is he's bringing security and protection to the people of the District of Columbia, unlike the radical kook city council and the incompetent mayor. And it's the people there who are suffering. I'll bet if you went door to door, and the media won't, of course, they report from their heavily secured high-rises, that the people of Washington would support this. I bet they would. Now, you got this clown, this Marxist, this Islamist, this Jew hater, this Christian hater, this trust fund baby who now lives in a rent control apartment, this Mamdani. And if you hadn't been caught by Cuomo, he'd still live in a rent control apartment. But you have him now going to all the 5 boroughs in New York City running against Donald Trump. Because he's a moron. Because he's a fool. And because that's what his advisors told him to do. I would like to see this. I would like to see a white paper, or what other color you prefer, laying out specifically how he would run grocery stores in the city. Wouldn't you like to see that, Mr. Producer? I would like to see how the food chain works, who the employees would be, how they're going to price things, how they're going to make sure there's enough food on the shelves. I would like to know where they're located. I want to know all of it. That's just one little fraction of what he wants to take over. I'd love to see it. But we won't, will we? I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Dana Bash works at CNN, which has literally so few viewers, it's an embarrassment. She is an embarrassment in and of herself. Very stupid. Very stupid. And most of them are, by the way. And so the president, he's talking about the dangers in the city and we need to take steps to try and deal with this and so forth. But I want you to listen how Dana Bash responds today on the Constipated News Network. Cut 20, go.
I should note that the most violent moment in recent history in D.C. was January 6th. And it was an attack on the United States Capitol by a lot of people who were doing it in the name of Donald Trump. And it included the people who were hurt, included members of law enforcement.
Clearly was not the most violent day. But you see, this is a woman who is a political thug, a left-wing goon. And I'm going to further demonstrate that. And they come in different sizes, different genitalia, and so forth and so on. That was the most violent day in Washington, D.C., she says. The only person who was killed was a veteran who's a protester. She was killed by a blind shot that went through the door and killed her. And this is the best Dana Bash can do. This is the same Dana Bash over the weekend who was slobbering all over Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, as we've demonstrated here beyond a doubt, who's a coward who won't come here, is a Stalinist and a very dangerous man. Very dangerous man. And I want you to listen to how she treats him, because they keep bringing him on CNN and MSNBC, despite the fact that he's a Stalinist. And despite the fact that Stalin murdered millions. Despite the fact that Marxists have murdered 100 million. Now listen to this. This is I'm serious. Cut 6, volume up, America. Cut 6. This was yesterday, Sunday, on CNN, and this is Dana Bash. Cut 6, go.
Something that I'm sure you have seen, a Gallup poll. Did you see this Gallup poll?
Yeah.
And what the Gallup poll found was that you are one of the most widely admired Americans, and I believe you're only second to the Pope.
And you want me to declare my candidacy for Pope?
I don't think that you're eligible for a lot of reasons.
Then I won't do that.
I watched you tonight. I've watched you for a very, very long time. You're obviously still full of vigor and intensity for the things that you're passionate about and have been for decades. Is there another presidential run in you?
You hear this, folks? Do you hear this? Do you hear this? Go ahead.
Worry about that. I am going to be 84 years of age next month, as a matter of fact. So I think that speaks for itself.
No, I don't think so. She'd just soon have you run. Have you ever heard such a fawning, pusillanimous individual, Mr. Producer? It's grotesque. It is, but this is who they are. This is how they're out of the closet now. They're out of the closet. And Sanders is asked about the starving of Palestinians in Gaza. And Bernie Sanders is a vile, poisonous, vicious, self-hating Jew. He was born a Jew. He's always hated his faith. He's always hated the state of Israel. He went to a kibbutz that was Stalinist. He's always praised the most genocidal leaders of communist states until it becomes impossible for him to continue to do so, like when he decided the first time to run for president. But he praised Chavez in Venezuela. He praised Castro. He praised Noriega, Nicaragua. As you know, his association in Moscow, when the Soviet Union was in charge. This guy's out of the closet red. He is a red. You understand what I'm saying? He's a commie. And so they keep pushing him on TV. But listen to this. Cut 4. Dana Bash, who's also Jewish. I believe her father's a rabbi. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. Go ahead.
Would you say Hamas has some culpability in people starving?
No.
Why?
So stop right there.
So much money.
Excuse me. Stop right there. Says no. No, Hamas doesn't have any responsibility for any of this stuff. I'm going to need you to start at the top, Mr. Producer. No, Hamas doesn't have any responsibility. None. So when I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that these people actually support Hamas and terrorists against Israel, probably against us too, I'm not kidding. It's true. Cut 4, go.
Would you say Hamas has some culpability in people starving?
No.
Why? When they spent so much money building tunnels and everything under the...
Right now, what is going on is a slaughter, all right? And right now, Israel is, with few exceptions, is in control of the military situation. It is not Hamas's. Hamas is a terrible...
See, this is where you interrupt a guy like this and say, no, wait a minute. Hamas is controlling the food. We have a UN report. Now, last week, it was 87% of all the UN trucks were being hijacked. Yesterday, it's 88% of all UN trucks are being hijacked. That's when you actually know something, you intervene, and you say, no, wait a minute, before he does his filibuster. And see, I'm talking about the food trucks and so forth. You say Israel has military control, but Hamas won't release the hostages, in which case this would all come to an end. But he won't say that. Or that Hamas and their ilk, or their militia there, are hijacking the trucks, almost 9 out of every 10. But he won't say that. That Hamas is executing people, executing them, when they seek food outside the chain that Hamas controls. He won't say that. He won't say any of it. He's the one that went to the floor of the Senate last week, or the week before last, I think it was last week, with those resolutions to cut off all aid to Israel. He did that. He's a Marxist. And this is why I tell you the Marxists and the Islamists work side by side. He's close to Talib. He's close to Omar. He has no affinity for the Jewish faith or the Jewish people, or for that matter, the American people. I'm being quite honest. None. He's the worst kind of Marxist. Now, I want to get into this a little bit more with you. I want you to have a mental placeholder where we are on this, what this man just said. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. By the way, my buddy Gohmert, hold on here 1 second, Louis Gohmert, He says, when touring the D.C. jail, the most prominent poster that was put up all over the different floors and wings of the jail was encouraging inmates to register and vote. The assistant warden was so proud to introduce me to the first D.C. councilman to be elected while being an inmate at the D.C. jail. He attended the D.C. council meetings online from jail. Does that sound like a good idea? We miss our buddy Louis Gohmert, don't we? I was telling you about Bernie Sanders. He's treated like a nice old man. He's not a nice old man. He's a disgusting buffoon who's done grave damage to this country. Another one who's never held a private job in his life. He's going to be 84 years old. I'm going to read something to you from my book on power. Woodrow Wilson, remember him? He was an early American Marxist, the late 1800s. As you know, he was a professor before he moved into politics. Let's see here. Gotta fix my computer. Woodrow Wilson and others insisted that a complete break from the past in the United States is required, a blank slate upon which to design this new governing blueprint. In this way, they were mimicking Karl Marx. At first, Wilson could not decide if this was best accomplished through an all-powerful president or judiciary. He eventually settled on what he considered the most obvious and certain means by which to accomplish this outcome, the judiciary. What better means to achieve the progressive ends, he believed, than the careful selection and appointment of the ideological soulmates who serve for life and without any effective method for public accountability. But it goes on. The entire premise for this revolution, this Marxist revolution, is not, for example, as Marx and others predicted and hoped, to foment a bottom-up movement, that is, the oppressed proletariat overthrowing the oppressor bourgeoisie. For in much of the Western world, and certainly in America, the public do not seek such a violent revolution. In fact, in America and elsewhere, there is no popular will to overthrow the existing society. And on the contrary, the people have and are prepared to fight and die for their country. Thus, out of necessity was born at the hands of the progressive masterminds a different kind of bourgeoisie, if you will, not strictly or even primarily defined by economic classifications, but driven by the accumulation of power and built on authoritarian impulses and objectives. A ruling class with more power than the Constitution authorized. It was and is essential, therefore, that the stable, predictable, and just governing laws undergirding the existing society, starting in America with the Constitution itself, which are both foundational and celebrated by the citizenry, be recast as their opposite, as unjust, immoral, dehumanizing, and so forth. The status quo must be usurped in small ways and large. Consequently, the public, most of whom are unaware of the creeping transition, acquiesce to it and are even convinced to celebrate it as progress. It is exposed to the vagaries of rulers and the threats and control of a rising police state. As such, the civil society, the forerunner and vanguard of a just body politic, commonwealth, and ultimately democratic government, cannot last long, as it lay naked for the power-hungry to take advantage. Indeed, the law is at bottom the exercise of power, and in this case the exercise of negative power. Consequently, insinuating revolutionaries into the judiciary, as Wilson and others preached as a priority, is the surest way to achieve such ends. Today, the Democrat Party's designs on the independence of the Supreme Court, including increasing its numbers to install additional hand-picked ideologues who share its revulsion of constitutional constraints and limitations, that is, activist judges and justices, is one of many examples, albeit the gravest at this moment, of what I will call the deconstitutionalization of America. Inasmuch as the law is about the distribution and application of power, fundamentally, the Constitution constrains the power of the power-hungry, and therefore it is their target. And this is Bernie Sanders, as little Miss Giggles is giggling along. You understand, you're almost as popular as the Pope. The Pope. It would be wrong to assume that soft negative power, which I call what's happening in our country now, exists only in the realm of the unelected. In addition to usurpation of the judiciary, the pursuit of authoritarian aims, at least in a republic or democracy, particularly one that is relatively satisfied with the existing social norms and conditions, is also easier and likelier achieved by softening up the citizenry, gradually disarming the people, and inculcating them with state-run propaganda, ideas, values, and objectives. And that's what Sanders and Bash on CNN were doing. That is, without the blunt force of more aggressive power, and in a manner and mode more subtle and suitable to a public experienced in democratic principles. Consequently, the election process and the elective governmental entities provide the patina of a free and open society and participatory government, where the individual is said to have a real role in governmental decision-making and outcomes, and believes it to be so, but in fact is increasingly more a rote routine. At least that is necessary intent. That is the necessary intent, if not effect, of this soft negative power. You understand what I'm saying here? And it's true. In Europe, the situation is even graver. Parliaments, like America's Congress, have built immense bureaucracies through openly socialistic economic policies dating back more than half a century. Again, these serve as substitutes for representative government. But layered atop these edifices, European governments had added multinational arrangements where each country's government has voluntarily and willingly surrendered significant aspects of their own national sovereignty and, in turn, their citizen sovereignty to a collective of European countries under the establishment of another supergovernment, specifically the European Union. It is a supranational organization of 27 countries, with each country ceding certain economic, legal, and governing authorities to the Union. Each member country votes on policies that affect all the other members. Hence, an international governmental sovereignty stands above the national governmental sovereignty, a hierarchy of negative power. The severity of this governmental arrangement is intended to erode, if not smother, any serious or effective connection between the top-tier ruling class, made up of international elites, and the citizenry of a member nation, who are at the lowest level of power tier. True participatory and representative government is a mockery, as the circle of liberty surrounding the individual is squeezed tighter without any practical or adequate recourse. This is what I call, again, authoritarian democracy. How long can such governmental enterprises be sustained? So long as they are able to contain and restrain the human spirit and initiative, cage the civil society, and exert increasingly aggressive forms of negative power over the population. Indeed, the paranoid or threatened ruling class's instinct is for more repression and more coercion, where civil liberties retract as the impulse for more control and survival kicks in. Authoritarian democracies become more authoritarian and less democratic. And I've made the argument in this book that negative power exists in both open and closed societies, the former experiencing soft negative power. And it is in the ascendancy today in most democracies, including America. It takes different forms and moves at different paces. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, if somebody like Dana Bash had read a book like this, not that she's capable of it, not that she has any motivation to do so, to inform herself, which is why she's remained dumb all these decades, they would know how to question Bernie Sanders. They would know how to question Mamdani. They would know how to question AOC and Tlaib and Omar and all the rest of the reprobates. This is why I want you to read it, so you know exactly what's going on. We'll be right back. How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow. Just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, radio's hell-raising intellectual. Call now, 877-381-3811.
Here we have Benjamin Netanyahu at a press conference yesterday. You won't hear this on any of these so-called influencers. They'd rather tell you what they think than to hear what he has to say. Cut one, go.
Look, I respect Friedrich Merz. I think he's been a good friend of Israel. But I think he's buckled under. He's buckled under the pressure of false TV reports, the pressure, internal pressure from various groups. And I can say this, and I don't want to talk about him specifically, but I want to say this. Look, maybe some choose to forget October 7th. We will not forget what happened. And we will do whatever it takes to defend our country and defend our people, defend our future. We will win the war, with or without the support of others. But I think that there's an issue here. And the issue is many leaders tell me, look, we know you're right, but we can't stand, in the face of the public opinion in our country, especially European leaders. They tell me that over and over again. And I say, that is your problem. It is not our problem. No nation can accept a genocidal terrorist organization, an organization committed to its annihilation, a stone's throw from its citizens. Our goal is not to occupy Gaza. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas terrorists. The war can end tomorrow if Gaza, or rather if Hamas lays down its arms and releases all the remaining hostages. Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will have overriding security responsibility. A security zone will be established on Gaza's border with Israel to prevent future terrorist incursions. A civilian administration will be established in Gaza that will seek to live in peace with Israel. That's our plan. This is a New York Times cover photo. It's on the front page of Muhammad Zakaria Ayub and his mother. Muhammad Zakaria Ayub is suffering from a genetic illness, which you're familiar with. It's called cerebral palsy. His mother is well fed, and his brother is healthy. I'm looking right now into the possibility of a governmental suit against the New York Times because this is outrageous.
And there's a lot of that. I'd mentioned Stephen A. Smith and I spoke today on his podcast, and we're trying to get a link to it when they're ready because I think you'll enjoy it. You'll see the chemistry he and I have, the respect we have for each other. Known him a very, very long time. But it's an interesting thing. Why would the New York Times have to come up with a phony photograph, Mr. Producer? If people are starving by the tens of thousands, how hard would it be to get a photograph of that? And why is the mother plump? Why is the brother fine? See, this should raise a lot of questions for you folks, and even when the UN says, I think it was Friday or Saturday, that 88% of the trucks they're sending in there are getting hijacked. They're being hijacked by the Israelis? No. Now, everybody knows what's going on. But there's a big game that's being played. It's outrageous. So now you heard from Benjamin Netanyahu himself. Not by Bernie Sanders, not by the isolationists who want you to hate him. And I can attest to the fact that our fantastic president and the Israeli prime minister are very close. And they remain simpatico on so many of these issues. which is very, very important, despite reports by some of the Lilliputians who lie about all this sort of thing. I'll lie about it. Now we have a former AOC organizer, as reported by our friends at Red State, Ward Clark, busted after calling. Hold on. Let me fix this. Well, that is weird. Let me try getting to that again. Stick with me, folks. This is a Red State. They did it again. Wow. Norton keeps blocking me, says this is a security threat because I'm trying to read this article about AOC and her staff. Isn't that weird, Mr. Producer? Let me give it one more try. Yes, we are live and national. Let me try it here again. Stick with me. Let's see if they'll let me do this. The article says, former AOC organizer busted after calling for attack on, quote, Israel-loving Zionists, unquote, at public school. Anti-Semitism, they write, has to be one of humanity's oldest and most traditional hatreds, but that doesn't mean it doesn't keep popping up. The latest example comes to us from Brooklyn, from a former organizer for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, we should note, had nothing to do with the event. The former organizer, one Iman Abdul, took to her X account to call for an attack on a public high school attended by Jewish students. This is how it's reported. A Brooklyn woman who worked as a youth organizer for Squad Representative AOC was arrested this past Friday on charges she urged her 25,000 social media followers to attack a public high school because Jewish students attended. Iman Abdul. Do you see the violence? The violence that is bred in the Middle East has been exported to this country. You see this, Mr. Producer? It is constant. It is constant. A Brooklyn woman who worked as a youth organizer for Squad AOC was arrested Friday on charges she urged her 25,000 social media followers to attack a public high school because Jewish students attended. Iman Abdul, 27, is accused of posting a screenshot on Thursday of the location of Leon M. Goldstein High School for the Sciences in Manhattan Beach on Google Maps and a chilling caption. Quote, if anyone needs a public school in New York City to attack for whatever reason, Lexus driving Israel-loving Zionists, all attend here, unquote, the since-deleted post read. So Iman Abdul is apparently not only a hate-ridden bigot, but is also only marginally literate, because she had multiple spelling errors. Those two often seem to go hand in hand, and now she's in custody. The NYPD arrested Abdul at her Brooklyn home on Friday, charging her with making a terroristic threat, acting in a manner injurious to a child, aggravated harassment, and making a threat of mass harm. Abdul worked on the Democratic primary campaigns of Socialist Poles AOC and State Senator Julia Salazar. This summer 2018, she was paid canvasser for Salazar, the lawmaker told the Post. Local Jewish community members are rightly concerned. They've seen this before. Iman Abdul called for an attack on a school, after all, which may well be attended by children and grandchildren of that community. A map, a pin, a call to harm Jews, fellow New Yorkers, children, teachers. This isn't just dangerous. It's evil. I'm outraged and horrified that a New York City school was publicly marked for attack simply because of its Jewish population, said Tova Blaut, a DOE pre-K staffer and Jewish activist. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, who is Jewish, and the department's intelligence unit were quickly alerted to the threat. Abdul doubled down in a direct message to stop anti-Semitism on her Instagram account. She said, I never called for an attack on the school in the sense of mass organization or not even individual people attacking individuals. That's literally stupid. I called for an attack on the school. Oh, I see. The Zionist institution funded by our public dollars. We have every right to verbally attack the school. Oh, verbally attack it. Oh, okay. She wrote, if anyone needs a public school in New York City to attack for any reason, as I pointed out, it's hard to see that as meaning, oh, but I only mean you should go peacefully protest. Words mean things. And the word attack in this context especially carries a nasty connotation. More so, we presume, if you're Jewish. This is written by somebody named Ward Clark, who I don't believe is Jewish. It's getting very bad out there. We've got the woke right, these so-called influencers, who are doing everything they can to stoke violence against Jews, who are rewriting World War II, who are turning Churchill into evil and Hitler into a passive leader who really didn't want to do the things that he did, but he was forced to. These are the people that some of you are listening to. Some of the so-called podcasters. They bring in phony historians. They bring in a Darryl Cooper. Or they bring in comedians who are a joke, but they're not funny. Like a Dave Smith. I don't know any of these people personally, and I don't ever want to. This is who they bring in. Then we have to hear the likes of a Marjorie Taylor Greene. They go on about AIPAC, 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 AIPAC. I don't belong to AIPAC. I have nothing to do with AIPAC. What does AIPAC have to do with anything? There's all kinds of groups that get involved in elections. Italian groups, Irish groups, Catholic groups, black groups, Hispanic groups. But it's the Jews, you see, it's AIPAC. Which is a fairly moderate organization, by the way, from a political perspective. I've never attended their meetings, not that I can remember. But so what if I did? So what if I did? So what if I met with them, which I never have? But so what if I did? It's very dangerous out there, America. Very dangerous. And this stuff is being fueled by the Marxists and the Islamists, and by the fake MAGA isolationists. It's being fueled by the Carlsons and the Bannons, by the Greens. Can't remember everybody's name, and a lot of others as far as I'm concerned. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. The Stephen A. Smith Show, a podcast program. Stephen A. Smith works really hard, and he's a great guy. He and I go back many years, over 20 years, since we first met. I'd say similar personalities, wouldn't you? And we had a great discussion, great conversation. Not just about the book, but about a number of things. He asked some very penetrating questions. He's smart as hell. And I just linked to it. And I think you're going to find it very interesting, particularly folks in this audience. So check it out. I've just posted on all of my, or am posting it on all my social sites. Hopefully it'll be up there, if not immediately, very soon. For you to listen to at your leisure. Hope you can share it with people too. But he asked a lot of good questions, and I had a lot of fun. I hope I wasn't too boring. But you'll be the judge of that. He was not. So check it out. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show. Great podcast. I don't believe I'm doing many podcasts. I think his is the only one, or certainly the first one. There's just too many. I love all our podcasters out there, but I can't. I mean, I'm doing 10 interviews a day, so it's just not possible between radio and TV. But why him? Two reasons. One, he's a buddy. And number two, he comes at things from a slightly different perspective. So I thought it would be interesting. So, and it is interesting. So check it out. I've linked to it. Hopefully it's up there now. But you can always go to Stephen A. Smith's podcast show on YouTube. But I'm going to link to it directly, so you have it at your fingertips. All right. Where are we? What am I doing, Mr. Producer? All right. We're going to go to the break soon. Is that what I understand, Mr. Producer? Oh, my goodness. So check out that link with Stephen A. Smith. I think the most controversial thing I did during that interview is why I wore my Philadelphia Eagles hat. But those of you out there know I'm a Philadelphia Eagles guy. I'm from Philadelphia. Mr. Producer tonight, you're from Dallas, right? Were you born there? That's your team? I remember the good old days with Landry and those guys. It's been a long time, man. The owners mean everything. The owners mean everything. All right, we'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, we'll take calls near the bottom of the hour, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Okay, it's up. The interview on Stephen A. Smith's podcast. And like I say, he's really good. And I wonder if he is going to run. I don't think so. I think he makes too much money, he once told me. It's one of the reasons I wouldn't run, but I wouldn't run anyway. But that's my guess that he's not. 2028, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is not running in 2028. He has said he's not running. He can't run under the Constitution. He's having a good time tweaking people. Some of the grifters out there want you to believe it. Next thing you know, they'll be raising money off of it and everything else. But that's just not going to happen. So I'm just making you aware of that. Be careful of these people. They'll try and separate you from your money. It's not even funny. Let's see here. I pulled some of this stuff for you. Ambassador Mike Huckabee slammed CBS. CBS and NBC, I mean, ABC, don't get me wrong, has its moments, but CBS and NBC, it's almost like every day. From our friends at jns.org, jns.org. Huckabee slammed CBS for selectively editing interview on Israel. Why do they have to edit anything? U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee criticized CBS News on Friday for selectively editing a recent interview with him, conveying a different message than the one he expressed in the full conversation. This is so sleazy. So sleazy. And this is CBS. Ever wonder how the media edits an interview to give you a different story than the one they had? Huckabee tweeted. The diplomat then added a link to the full transcript of the U.S. Embassy website, providing readers the opportunity to identify the misleading edits for themselves. The interview was aired on August 7, conducted by CBS News' Deborah Patta, P-A-T-T-A, who has interviewed individuals attempting to undermine the Jewish state's moral status, such as the director of, quote, Breaking the Silence, unquote, an Israeli NGO dedicated to alleging Israel Defense Forces have committed war crimes. You know, the guy who founded CBS, his name was Paley. He was Jewish, out of Philadelphia. And the first station he had, radio and TV, were WCAU. They later changed it to WPHT. Now it's just a disastrous mess owned by Soros. But nonetheless, can you imagine if he saw what CBS was doing now? The less than 4-minute broadcast interview begins with Pata asking Huckabee whether he's deeply troubled by images of starving children, quote unquote. Huckabee replies, "I'm moved when the photos are verified." The reporter follows by insisting that there are real images, to which the American official says, "Oh, I think that there are certain people suffering in Gaza." In the full exchange, Huckabee answered as follows: "I'm moved when the photos are verified. I mean, we're all moved when you see someone, especially a child, who's starving. But the New York Times published a picture on the front page of what was purported to be a starving child. Turns out the child had a birth defect and had not been starving. There were other pictures, for example, that were published of starving children in Gaza. Turned out one of them was from Yemen. One was from 2017. There was another photo that appeared to be somewhat staged, with photographer all set up to get pictures of a few people herded into a small area." At this point, Pata interrupted, asking about, quote, "real images," unquote. Huckabee articulated a reason for people suffering in Gaza, which was edited. He said part of the reason is because you have pallets and trucks full of food that the UN won't take in because they say they don't want military escort from the IDF. But they say it's not safe. 87% of their own food, every time they do take it in, gets hijacked and looted. That's their numbers. That's their numbers. Those aren't mine. I didn't make that up. That's what they report. So there's not been a lack of food or even a lack of attempt. It's been an inefficient way of getting it in. It's been a problem because you have a terror organization that's stealing it, looting it, then turning around and selling it to the people who are hungry. That's what it says in the full transcript. In the aired interview, the reporter Pata pushes against these points, saying the UN's World Food Program stated it had not seen evidence that humanitarian aid was being diverted to Hamas. Huckabee replies, quote, "The U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites are effective. They're getting food to people. It's not perfect, but it's doing what President Trump required us, asked us to do, that was set up through GHF, give food to the people, but in a way that Hamas can't steal it." Now remember, he went to Gaza. In the full exchange, which CBS News omitted, Huckabee went on to say Hamas made $500 million last year, $500 million US stealing our food, selling it on the black market in order to finance their activities. That's stunning. That's a real business they have. They put it in warehouses. Yet, yes, there have been some of the just regular population who are looting the trucks too. One of the things we heard at GHF feeding sites, remember again he went and visited, was people, when they first started coming, they said, well, this is the first time you didn't have to pay for food. They were used to having to buy food from Hamas at prices that Hamas was inflating because they stole something. And then they turned around and sell it. Later on, reporter Pata claims that every single day there are people dying near GHF sites. Huckabee retorts, tell me about the people dying at the GHF sites. In what way? Pata asks, so you have no reports of anybody being killed near a GHF site? How do you like that, Mr. Producer? You have no report? You just said, right, that they had reports of it? And he said, tell me, how are they dying? And she says, well, you have no reports? Huckabee said, no. We've had reports that there have been incidences, but forgive me if I'm a little skeptical and someone says these people are being killed in the GHF sites. I'm getting reports every day from them, every single day. If I would hear that, I assure you, we'd be interested in getting the details. And if there was some random shooting of people who are coming for food, those people would be consequented severely. These people are liars. I don't know how they live with themselves. The full transcript shows the following section from Huckabee's answer was also cut out. This was cut out. We've had no reports that there have been incidences, but we've also had reports one day that there were 27 people killed at the GHF site. We had the video to show that no one was even injured, much less killed. but it went all over the world. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the BBC, CNN all reported, and it turned out a total hoax that never happened. CBS didn't report that from his comments. Did those media companies come back, some of them with a tiny little correction in the fine print, but the story went out? There, 27 people have been murdered at the GSF site. It never happened. That was skipped from the story. In fact, in the full transcript, the interview commences with Huckabee reasoning against further negotiations with Hamas. So they cut and paste. They cut and paste. He says, I think the negotiations are broken down completely because Hamas is not serious about negotiating. I'm not sure they ever were, but they certainly aren't anymore. I'm not sure there's a way to revive negotiations with people who were so savage that they would rape women in front of their families, burn elderly people in their wheelchairs in front of family, and do the hideous things that they not only did on October 7th, but they continue to do in torturing hostages that have been in the tunnels almost 22 months. So if I believe that there was a way to sit down and reason with people like that, I'd love to see it happen. But you have to look at who they are and what they've done to their own people. How many of their own people have they murdered in Gaza? And ask yourself, are these people that really want a conclusion? Do they want some level of stability? I see no sign of it. The CBS interview closed, however, with the reporter Pata asking Huckabee about the claims that Israel was committing genocide in Gaza, apparently pushing a narrative that the war should end. If Israel's attempting genocide, they're really, really bad at it, he said. They could have had genocide on October 8th, Huckabee was shown saying. In the full exchange, he continued, they could have dropped a few bombs and have annihilated all Gazans. It's not that big of an area. They certainly had the capacity to do it, and saw that in a 12-day war with Iran. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world to say that Israel's committing genocide. That's absurd. On its face, it's absurd. If they were trying to commit genocide, it would not have taken them 22 months. So there you have it. CBS News. A disgusting operation. We can't even trust our own media. They're just filled with such damnable fools and liars. Here we have Memory. Remember I told you this is a great site, MEMRI, memory.org. You really should bookmark it, memory.org. Liberals and journalists in the Arab world have said Hamas's torture of hostages is modern-day Nazism. Liberals and journalists in the Arab world. Its officials luxuriate in Qatar hotels, they say, while bringing disaster upon Gaza. Have you heard this story? Because they don't even say this in our country and in the West. The influencers, you know, the Jew haters. They don't say this either. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We actually have some Arab journalists and liberals who are more honest than so many in our own country. Memory.org points out, after Hamas released shocking videos showing the horrifying condition of 2 Israeli hostages, Arab journalists and liberals harshly condemned the organization's cruelty and its torture of the hostages. Posting on their personal X accounts, they also slammed the UN's silence over these atrocities and called on the international community, listen to this, this is very important, to decry them and help secure the hostages' release. The writers stressed that Hamas circulated these videos to convince the world that there is a food shortage in Gaza, but its leaders, who feast in luxury hotels in Qatar and own fat bank accounts, are not really interested in the Gazans' hunger, but care only of their own survival. That's certainly true. Some of the posts conveyed that the videos of the emaciated hostages prove that Hamas is not a resistance movement, but a cult of cruelty that serves only its own interests and Iran's at the expense of the Palestinian people. Here's an example of what they posted. In August 2nd, 2025, post on Twitter, Egyptian author and journalist Dalia Zaida shared a picture of hostage Avatar David. I've shown that on my sites as well. Emaciated and trapped in a dark tunnel, and commented, Hamas forced the starving Israeli hostage to dig his own grave while filming it, believing that such scenes would manipulate the international community into sending more aid into Gaza. In reality, these videos only invite harsher war. However, Hamas does not care. They never truly cared about anything except the survival of their own militants. Why can't the world see truth? This is an Egyptian author and journalist. Hamas has been weaponizing human suffering, that of the Gazans and that of the Israeli hostages, to fool the world and make their commanders and militants survive. Rather than rewarding their terrorism by recognizing their illusory state, the world leaders need to help Israel free the hostages and the innocent among the people in Gaza from the pawns of Hamas and its sponsors. Enough with nurturing terrorism under the deceitful flag of supporting Gaza. Now, one day earlier, responding to the video of the hostage, Ziada urged Western media to show the real case of deliberate starvation in Gaza, namely the case of Brobslevsky, who's being starved to death by Hamas, a hostage, and slammed this media for believing Hamas's lies. She wrote, hey, New York Times, CNN, BBC, and similars. Here's a real story of systematic, purposeful starvation to death of an innocent human being in Gaza. Oh, I almost forgot. He's an Israeli hostage. Not attractive enough to be your cover story like the fake footage that Hamas has shared with you. Again, this is an Egyptian journalist. Palestinian journalist Ayman Khalid wrote, by releasing the video of Avatar David, Hamas wanted to defend itself and create the impression that it cannot feed its operatives and the hostages. Some of the writers lambasted Hamas's leaders for pretending to care about the Gazans' pain and hunger, while they themselves are fat and rich and live in luxury hotels in Qatar. Got that, America? Qatar. Iraqi journalist Sufyan al-Samari, editor of the Iraqi news website Baghdad Post, shared a picture of Hamas officials with big bellies and wrote, "O people of Gaza, Hamas's officials, whose bellies are swollen with Qatari bribes, are risking your lives. They pretend to weep over your hunger while they dine on delicacies in the hotels and palaces of Doha." Sounds like a Mark Levin post. Saudi online influencer Abdullah, I wish our influencers, so-called, were as good as these influencers. But they're not. Ours are Jew haters and these are truth tellers. Saudi online influencer Abdullah al-Tawaliya likewise shared images of Hamas officials dining in fancy hotels and Hamas fighters eating heartily in their tunnels and remarked, here are Hamas officials in hotels and Hamas fighters in tunnels, while the wretched people of Gaza deal with the killing, starvation, and all the Zionist crimes. Oh, there you go. In another post, he wrote, money, bribes, stolen humanitarian aid, and fundraisers. That is what fuels the situation and allows the war to continue. If you knew how much Hamas officials are worth, you would realize the truth about what's going on. When will Hamas's officials be pressured to expose their bank balances? When will Qatar be exposed, other than by me and a handful of others, for being behind this whole damn thing? Some writers mocked Hamas's official Ghazi Hamad, who in August, interview with Al Jazeera, called on the Gazans to bear their suffering patiently because the, quote, countdown to Israel's collapse has already begun. For example, Saudi writer Abdul Al-Yabadabadu, I can't read all these names, lives in a 5-star hotel and wants the Gazans to bear their suffering patiently. He himself is patient with the menu and would like better falafel and hummus. Kuwaiti liberal Jazem al-Jarrad shared Hamad's remarks and commented, he's one of the filthiest creatures in the world. Got that, Tucker? Got that, Bannon? Got that, all the rest of you? Green with an E on the end? Got that? Mediaite? Drudge Report? I'll be right back.
It's your daily adult dosage of the Constitution. The Mark Levin Show. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
Where the heck does this show go? So fast to me. But then again, I am a talk radio fanatic. Yes, I am. More a listener, a quasi-professional, if you will. I think I'm the only quasi-professional in the Radio Hall of Fame, Mr. Producer. Isn't that cool? Somebody has to represent the quasi-professionals. May I have an amen? Amen. There you go. Mr. Producer's good. He does this. You can't hear him. I can hear him. Ron is sitting in. He does a great job. All right, where the hell am I? Let's go here. Hold on, folks. I was somewhere. Oh, callers. All right. I can barely see that. Let me pull this out. Let's take some callers. Let's see. Let's do that. How about this? Let us go to Sam. Sam the man in Kansas City, Missouri, the great KCMO. Sam the man, how are you?
Mark, I am.
Uh-oh. Did we lose him, Mr. Mark, I am. You're a good man, Sam, no matter what they say. Mr. Call Screener, be ready. If Sam calls again, let's slip him in, okay? It's the only fair thing to do. Let us go to Colleen. I'm trying to read this. In Rutherford, New Jersey, the great WABC. Colleen, how are you?
Hello, Mark. Can you hear me?
What?
If I'm on. Can you hear me?
Who is this?
Hello?
Yes?
Colleen.
Oh,
Okay,
Colleen. Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just playing with you. How are you, Colleen?
All right, good. Well, we had a tragedy this weekend over the synagogue in Rutherford. I don't know if you know about it. It's
an old historic synagogue, and it was burned to the ground.
It was burned to the ground.
And the rabbi and his family almost didn't get out.
You're absolutely right. He's an extremely young rabbi, very impressive. Young man, young babies in that house, a young wife, and but the community loves them. And I walked past that synagogue my whole life as a child, as a kid, on my way to Sunday school and church. And it's a historical building in the town, and the town is devastated over it, absolutely devastated, because there was someone who did firebomb that old Victorian synagogue.
But hold on one second. Do we know? I believe they're investigating this one. Have they come up with a reason yet?
They're saying it's not suspicious, but it lit up so fast. Like you said, the rabbi, I don't know how he got out there. I mean, all the interviews with him, at one point he broke down. Of course he broke down. He got out there with his life and his children. It's just devastating that they have to experience something like this. And because it happened 12 years ago, we're all suspicious, and the town.
Well, of course you're suspicious. Synagogues don't just burn like that.
No, especially nowadays. And so he's going to rebuild. But the good thing is the town, he immediately, started a GoFundMe. And within a half a day, it was already up to 86,000. It's way over that now. But we want them to know that they're loved, and this town.
So tell us, where do you go on the GoFundMe to help them build their synagogue back up?
So I got it off of the Facebook page. If you go to, there's all these. We grew up in Rutherford, and
so for the audience, where would they go to make it simple for them?
So the name of the synagogue is Bethel, Bethel Synagogue in Rutherford, New Jersey. I'm sure it goes right to their webpage.
All right, my friend Colleen, thank you very, very much. You take care of yourself. Thank you. We ever get Sam back or no, I guess? Sam, I don't know what happened from Kansas City, Missouri, the great KCMO. Go right ahead, my friend.
Hello, Mark. How are you?
Let me look. I am great. Thank you.
I have just picked up On Power today. I am almost halfway through it since 2 o'clock.
Now, tell the truth. Do you like it?
I absolutely love it.
Well, that's very sweet of you.
It is up there with the way things ought to be. You know, like I told Mr. Call Screener, I'm a longtime listener, reader, first-time caller.
Oh, thank you.
Ever since 2004, the presidential election, you guys got me through the rough years of Obama and the last 4 crazy years. My main point is, you know, you play that clip with Data Bosch, moron. And
No, she
Bernie,
is.
I thought he was going to dive into his oligarchy spiel.
Yes.
But like I told your call screener, you know, doing the same thing repeatedly over and over again, expecting a different result. What's that called? Insanity?
Mm-hmm. And they're full of insanity. No question about that.
Just as a quick side note, I'm actually at work right now. The book is in front of me. I can't put it down. I actually want to go back and get a copy for my stepson. He's going off to college. That'll be a great piece of armor for him.
I'll tell you what we're going to do for you. Don't hang up, Mr. Producer. Let's get the gentleman's full name and address, and we'll ship a copy off to him. Thank you very, very much, Sam, because we lost you and we got you back. I appreciate it. You know, people, you're going to think this is self-serving. It's not. People are reading the book. There's thousands and thousands of it, tens of thousands of you now. And people love it, and they can't put it down. That's what I'm getting. My mother-in-law is among them. She's been sitting down reading it, take a break for dinner, goes back to it and reads it. I think you're going to find it. It flows beautifully. It's very compelling. Again, I know it sounds silly, the author, to say this, but I always tell you the truth. I always communicate that with you. And if you go on Amazon right now, you'll have the book tomorrow. The value's great. It's under $20, or you can go. Barnes and Noble has them, and Walmart has them, and Sam's has them. You know, all the wonderful bookstores, Books A Million, they all have them. So I hope you'll check them out. And I know you're going to love it. I know you're going to love it. People love this book. President of the United States loves this book. So he's recommended it not once, not twice, but 3 different times. 3. Let's keep going. Leon, Suffolk, New York. Leon, WABC, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. I wanted to get your thoughts on this $10 million slush fund that the Albany legislatures have put together to fund legal fees for the people like Letitia James.
It's outrageous.
Nothing to do with their jobs.
It's outrageous. You folks in New York are paying for her legal fees to defend herself, where she's alleged in her private life of stealing money as a result of lying about her mortgage status. That is, stealing money from the state, effectively, by claiming a home in Virginia as her primary home, by claiming a building with 5 apartments in it, only had 4, as well as other things. She's done that. Schiff is alleged to have committed mortgage fraud by having 2 primary residences. You only get one in Maryland and one in California. And they ought to throw the book at these guys because they tried to concoct lies about Donald Trump, especially this Letitia James. This Letitia James lied about Donald Trump, his valuations on his properties. The big banks, these are big, sophisticated banks. They know they can value these properties themselves. They all made money. Not one there was not a single witness that testified against Donald Trump. Not one. Not one said they lost money. They all made money. And he paid them off early. And then they valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. Mar-a-Lago's worth $1.5, $2 billion, ladies and gentlemen. Not $18 million. I'd raise the money. $18 million? You crazy? But that just shows you how nuts they are. And the appellate court removed that judge eventually. You know, the judge that looked like one of the Marx brothers? Yeah, that guy. I can't remember his name. He's such a moron. But anyway, whatever's thrown at them. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, what's the constitutionality of a taxpayer paying for somebody who committed a crime that has nothing to do with their job?
That ought to be challenged in New York at the state level. Somebody ought to challenge that. Because that's nothing but official graft. That's what that is. Just because they pass a law and create a slush fund for her doesn't make it lawful. Somebody ought to challenge that. Some group in New York, some nonprofit group, a conservative group, or maybe the Republican Party in New York or the Conservative Party. Somebody ought to challenge that, because that really is icing on the crooked cake, isn't it?
For sure. But what about your high school that wants to take Netanyahu off the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, what about it? Cheltenham Township High School outside of Philadelphia. The township has gone Democrat. It's gone very liberal. The demographics have changed significantly. The idea that they want to remove him, I don't care if they don't want to put me on it. It doesn't mean a damn thing to me. You know, I'll tell you the funny thing. Here's the funny thing, Sam. When I was in law school at Temple University, right, you know, in North Philadelphia, right outside of Cheltenham, where I grew up, I was elected to the school board in Cheltenham. That shows you how much it's changed. Now, of course, I'm not in the Hall of Fame, and I don't really give a damn. I graduated from that high school after 11th grade anyway, so I couldn't wait to get out. All right, Sam, don't hang up. Thank you, my friend. I actually had a nice experience in high school, to be perfectly honest with you. But here we are. We can't have him. He's a right-winger. We can't have him. He likes Trump. We can't have him. He likes Netanyahu. No. We're here to purify our Hall of Fame. That's right. Then they got mad at me for denouncing the Hall of Fame. Unless he apologizes, I'll go stick it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Okay. That's my Yiddish. Okay. Let's go back to the calls here. All right, that one's not working. That one is. Michael, Beaufort, South Carolina, XM Satellite. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, sir. And yourself?
Very well, thank you. Now, Nancy Mace wants to be your governor. What do you think of that?
I would think I would like her as a governor.
Yeah, you would?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just curious. Tell me what's cooking.
So, well, sir, my question is this. So, I was wondering about this Mamdani guy, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly.
Who knows?
In New York.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways...
I prefer Mamdani, but go ahead, whatever you want.
What I've wondered to myself, and we all know the rhetoric that he spouted off with. Mm-hmm. And, of course, all of this would just bankrupt New York City in a heartbeat.
Sure will.
So what I'm wondering is that, is any of this, in your opinion, is any of this just, bluster, so to speak?
No, these guys are true believers. He's a true believer. If he gets in there, he'll bring in fellow true believers. They'll try and make sure that they can never lose another election. And they will immediately grab the levers of power, as many as they can, and use them. It's a very dangerous crew here, a very dangerous bunch of young punks, to be perfectly honest with you, who don't know crap. This guy's 33 years old. He knows nothing. Thank you for your call, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, we salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine. Good luck on Friday. Our brothers and sisters in Israel. Kill those Hamas bastards. And you, the American people, thank you for everything, and God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.